So today I'm with John, the director of Mortgage First. Thank you very much for coming along and joining us on the podcast.
No problem at all, Ali. Thanks for having me.
Thank you very much. And are you well?
Yeah, very well. Thank you. Very well.
Brilliant. So today we're just going to kind of just go over a few things. Obviously, you've spent a lot of time in the industry. So how did you kind of get into the profession?
By accident, really, to be perfectly honest. I think like most people, I probably definitely didn't set out to become a mortgage advisor. Just kind of happened along the way. Didn't do great at school, didn't get a load of qualifications, to be honest. Quite a few C's, D's, a couple of E's in there as well, I think.
Nice.
Left, I didn't do A-levels, didn't go to university. Went to college and did leisure and tourism, I think it was, which was just a bit of an easy subject, to be honest. Had lots of jobs when I left school, worked at Morrison's, worked in a travel agent, worked in a call centre. But then just by chance, really, a friend of mine, he was an advisor at CIS, Co-op Insurance.
Okay, yeah.
He got promoted to a sales manager's role and sort of said, look, do you want to come for an interview? Got an interview there. That's where I got my qualifications to be a financial advisor, as it initially was. Got my MAQ there as well, which was the CMAP equivalent back in the day.
Right.
Then after a year or so there, he left and set up his own mortgage brokers and asked me if I wanted to go with him. So yeah, that was kind of it. Like I say, never really planned on ending up in the mortgage industry or financial services, but just kind of happened along the way, and still here 20 odd years later or whatever it is.
Yeah, running your own business.
That's it. Yeah, and again, that was never really my intention. When I set Mortgage First up, it just again kind of happened really. I never set out to own a business or have staff or that kind of thing. It just sort of evolved along the way, really.
So talk me through it. Where were you before you kind of started Mortgage First, and how did it like pick up gravitas and to get you to where you are now?
So I worked for an independent mortgage advice firm in Sheffield, and this was kind of probably started them in about 2003, 2004, something like that. So I was with them a number of years, but they shifted whilst I was there predominantly into starting to do more adverse credit side of things. Adverse credit, large broker fees, traveling all over the country. Credit crunch was impending at that point. Right. So I kind of decided that wasn't really for me, that area of it anymore. I wanted to more sort of focus on the bread and butter mortgage advice side of it. So decided to step away. In all honesty, I could see that they were going to run into a bit of an issue because all of their eggs were in the adverse basket. Mm-hmm. Credit crunch was looming. So 2008, I decided to set up by myself. Great timing on my behalf. Just right at the start of the credit crunch was when I set the business up. But yeah, so just really went into it as a one-man band mortgage advisor. Just more not to have a business, not to grow it and build it, and that was never ever the intention when I set up. It was more just a case of wanted a bit more flexibility, wanted to be self-employed, but kind of wanted to do my own thing as well. So yeah, set up with them, or set up by myself, like I say, 2008, and then it's just kind of grown from there, really.
Amazing. Well, and what a journey it's undergone from one-man band to where you are now. How did you choose? I know you're part of the Stonebridge network. How did you choose the Stonebridge network?
Well, when I first set the business up, 2007, 2008, we initially went with a company called Mortgage Times Network, Mortgage Times Group, I think they were called. They're based down in London. They were another network. They were a Stonebridge equivalent. Mm-hmm. And I was with them for the first sort of 6 months or so. They went bust during the credit crunch, and they were quite a big network, I believe, at the time. But yeah, there was you could tell issues were coming. We were starting to not get paid commissions, or they would owe $5,000 in commission and pay you £1,000, almost as if they were divvying up a bit of money to everybody because they didn't have enough to pay the full amount, but just enough to keep everyone ticking over. And then pretty much overnight they went bust, got an email to say that your authorization's been removed and you'll have to chase up. We're part of L&G Mortgage Club, and luckily they sort of really helped us out with commissions, but we had to deal with them to try and get paid any commission. Couldn't submit any more business, couldn't submit any more applications. So if I'm perfectly honest, one of the reasons I picked Stonebridge was they said they were one of the ones that could get me up and running as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
As a one-man band, and bills to pay and that kind of thing, for your effectively your ability to work to be turned off overnight.
Yes.
How quickly I could get back up and running was kind of one of the most important things. But I think the other thing that struck me about Stonebridge was that Richard Adams, who was the owner and MD of Stonebridge at the time, Rich is not with Stonebridge anymore, but he's a bit of a legend in the mortgage industry. He drove up from Essex to come and see me. So we're based just near Sheffield. So that's a good sort of 3 to 4 hour drive. Rich drove all the way up from Essex to sit down and have a chat about kind of how we could get me into the network and how quickly we could do it and what the future would look like and that kind of thing. So I think that kind of stayed with me. Well, if he's willing to put all that effort in to drive up here and see me, Stonebridge is probably the place for me. So joined Stonebridge 2008 and still with them sort of, what we now 13, 14 years later, give or take.
Yeah, so, not looked back.
Exactly, mate, exactly.
Yeah, it's amazing what a first impression can do. And I think, if someone's willing to make that journey, like you said, it's the kind of people that you want to work with and spend your time with. Absolutely.
And, it's the same with recruitment and that kind of thing. First impressions really, really do last. And myself and Rich have got on really well over the years, and he's been a big influence on sort of my career, and he's helped me and guided me over the years as well. So those first impressions, like I said, really realistically, along with how quickly they could do it, that was the whole reason that I joined Stonebridge.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I know that you said you started during the credit crunch, something that's affected our whole way of life is the pandemic. How have mortgage first been hit hard in the pandemic, or how have you kind of adapted to it?
Not really, to be perfectly honest. Obviously, we had the same issues that everybody had in terms of lender service times and obviously the whole housing market in terms of purchases grinding to a bit of a halt. The thing that was lucky, I suppose, from our point of view, is that back in 2013, 14, something like that, I switched and I was still a one-man band at that point, because actually a lot of the growth for the firm has only happened sort of in the last 5 or 6 years. But back at that point, I switched to remote advising, which meant that obviously rather than just dealing with a pool of clients within a certain radius wherever I wanted to drive to, I was able to deal with clients all over the UK from my office. And that's how the whole business has grown. I would probably be underselling it if I said that 95% of our business is done remotely, whether it's on the phone, email, Zoom, that kind of thing. And it's been like that for years. That's how pretty much all our advisors operate. So that actually stood us in really good stead when the pandemic hit. Because obviously everybody had to switch to doing remote advice.
Yeah, and you were already there.
We were already there, and saying you're going to go remote is one thing, but then actually doing it takes quite getting used to. You've got to change your whole approach in terms of dealing with clients, documentation, processing the case, all that kind of thing. So I know, speaking to kind of other business owners who also look to switch to remote advice, they obviously had quite a few issues in terms of actually adapting to it, whereas we were able to carry on pretty seamlessly. And likewise, because we've been going a number of years, we had a very large client bank as well, which meant that obviously if you were a broker relatively new to the market, working in an estate agent, pretty much only working on purchase business, that will have dried up. Whereas we were able to keep ticking over. Yes, business levels dropped, but we were able to keep ticking over just with the retention business. The existing deals are coming to an end, who still need a mortgage getting through. So we were actually one of the lucky ones, really, in the sense that it didn't have, obviously, like I say, it had the service issues and all the other kind of things, but it wasn't as bad as I know it was for some people. Yeah.
Well, that's great to hear that you're able to still carry on going, and you've already got a lot of these things implemented before the pandemic hit.
Absolutely.
In terms of moving forward, what are your plans for Mortgage First?
I mean, you know, to grow it as big as we can do, really. You know, we want to compete with the big boys. We want to become one of the household names, whilst always kind of maintaining that sort of company ethos, if you like, in the sense of we are a family-owned business. The business is owned by myself and my wife, Lisa. Lisa's involved. You know, she's a sort of operations director. She's heavily involved day to day as well. And we always want to kind of keep that sort of ethos to the business. But likewise, we want to grow it as big as we can, and you know, and become that sort of household name and household brand like some of the other big boys out there.
Yeah.
You know, we're currently recruiting still now. We've got sort of 4 or 5 advisors going through authorization process. The aim is to get to somewhere between 30 to 35 advisors by the end of this year. And then hopefully with a aim to sort of getting to in the region of about 50 advisors next year. And then see where we go from there, really. I think, you know, the good thing that we have as a business is that we, you know, we're heavily into sort of lead generation in terms of online leads, as well as a number of lead partners that we work with as well. So, you know, we have large amounts of leads, which is what really enables us to grow. Because the amount of times I interview people and the reason that they're looking for another role is because, you know, they were sold a dream on lead generation, and the dream and the reality turned out to be 2 different things.
Yeah, I hear that all the time as well.
Yeah, and when, you know, they've got there and actually the leads on you know, the quality that they were told, or it's certainly not the volume. And you can be the greatest mortgage advisor in the world, but if you've got nobody to advise, you're not going to write any business. You're not going to make any money. So lead generation is how we've grown the business. That's kind of quite heavily my role in the business, in terms of bringing in new lead sources, whether it's new online partners, whether it's looking at our own internal lead generation, whether it's working with estate agents. That's how we're kind of able to, you know, so all very well saying we want 50 advisors next year, but you've got to have the means to support them, as well as the sort of, you know, the capabilities to attract them. Every man and his dog's recruiting right now. You know, everyone's kind of swayed by how busy they've been over the past few months, thinking, oh, we need to get some more advisors in. But ultimately, there's no point bringing advisors in and then not being able to feed those advisors, which does seem to happen regularly, like we say, with why we're talking to other people. So yeah, you know, the long-term aim is to build it as big as we can, you know, whether that's 35 advisors and we stop there, or whether it's 135 advisors. We'll see what the next few years brings.
Yeah, whilst maintaining that same kind of feel that you've got at the moment.
Absolutely, you know, that's it. We you know, we still operate to a certain degree in terms of that small, close-knit firm. It gets harder as the bigger you get, particularly with the fact that the majority of our advisors are remote-based. They work from home all over the country, and that can be hard to kind of keep that culture going. But you know, it's something that we strive to maintain.
Well, I see you on LinkedIn, and it seems like you're doing a fantastic job of it. I see these barbecues, and all these.
Yeah, that was an interesting event. It was we'd not had any kind of social do. We try and have at least a couple a year, a winter one and a summer one. But obviously, we've not been able to have any kind of social event until, you know, since Christmas 2019 was the last time we did one. So we decided to have some kind of social gathering in the summer.
It looked amazing.
But yeah, I mean, with sort of COVID and the restrictions, we were struggling to find a venue that was willing to accept, you know, without breaching any rules or anything, but people didn't want to have sort of big gatherings. So in the end, we decided to have it at our house, which was a bit of a brave one. Luckily, we were really lucky with the weather. It was absolutely scorching, so we had everyone in the back garden. We had a local restaurant came and did a barbecue. We had a full free bar there as well, which the staff more than took advantage
Did it get a bit wild, or was it all good?
I mean, there was a couple of trays of shots doing the rounds later on and that kind of thing. We had a bit of beer pong, but I mean, we started at about two in the afternoon, and I think the last people went about 3 a.m. So it was
fair play.
So it was quite a. But I mean, to be fair, Lisa, my wife, she before she joined Mortgage First, she was a wedding planner.
Okay.
So she was in her absolute element. Or everything that you saw in terms of
a good host.
Looked, yeah, that was all her. I can't take any credit for any of that at all. But
well done to her.
The social events are a really important part of it, particularly with half the team being remotely based. It's it's the way you kind of you can do all you like on Zoom and that kind of thing, but there's nothing like sitting down and having a drink and having a proper chat with people.
Yeah, 100%. So when did, I know that you and Lisa kind of run the business together, when did she come on into the business and leave being a wedding planner?
So she came in, should know this really, shouldn't I? About 2015. I'm sure she'll tell me off when I've got that wrong, around about that point. Like I say, a lot of initially the business was just me. You kind of look at it and say, well, we started in 2008. So we're, sort of 13 years down the line. But actually, when you look at the sort of business as a whole, it was like that. And it was only around the 2014-15 mark, Lisa will say her joining was the catalyst for it really taking off, but wasn't quite like that. But it's kind of like that. And then it really, really takes off from there. So the growth really has only happened over the past sort of 5 or 6 years. But it got to the point where I'd taken on the first few advisors, I had a couple of administrators, and needed some help really in terms of running it. And that's where Lisa kind of eventually came on just to help out with commissions and that sort of thing. But then, her role, she's involved and she does all the marketing, she does all the social media, and she sort of manages the accounts department, payroll, pretty much everything that I don't do, to be perfectly honest. All the day-to-day stuff is Lisa behind the scenes. So
you're a good team then.
I'd say and we're on 2 different floors of the building, which that helps because I don't have to see her all day every day. That might be a little bit too much if we're at work all day together and then at home all day at night. So that helps. But we complement each other well. I mean, that's a lot of people sort of say to us, I don't know how you work with each other. And it just works, to be honest. It's like the skills really complement each other.
That's brilliant. That is really brilliant. In terms of what are the best things about running your own business, would you say?
Best things about running your own business, not having anybody to tell you what to do is quite a nice one. But I mean, I would say I lead from the front in that sense. I'm very much I'll regularly be the last person in the office.
Yeah.
If I'm not on the school run, I'll always be the first person in the office in the morning as well. So it's not just about doing what you want and being able to swan in and out, but I guess building something you can be proud of really is when I say I didn't set out to build a business, I definitely didn't. But as the years have evolved, my passion comes around growing the business and turning it into something that we can be proud of. And that's to say to everybody, whether you're a one-man band, you're still building your own business, or whether it's a firm of 100 advisors, you still get that same pride and buzz from kind of building and growing something. And I think it's just having that pride that comes from creating something
100%, especially when it's your own as well.
I mean, I always talk about Mortgage First like it's my third child. Me and Lisa got 2 kids, and Mortgage First our third baby really, and that's exactly how we see it in terms of growing it and nurturing it. And I think if you haven't got that passion for your business, then you're not going to succeed in whatever you're doing, because you've got to enjoy what you do, whatever your job is, whatever your role is. If you don't enjoy it, you're not going to make a success out of it, or certainly not reach the heights in it. So you've got to enjoy what you do, and we absolutely do.
100%, and that's great to hear. In terms of you touched on it then, in terms of school runs and kids, and how do you balance it all?
With difficulty at times, to be perfectly honest. I mean, luckily, we're both very, very organised people. I've got lists for lists and that kind of thing. So, Lisa's background as a planner, wedding planner, that helps. We're very, very organised. And things do suffer along the way. Certain social things and that kind of thing. You put so much time and effort into sort of growing your business, particularly with young kids. I say Lisa joined in 2015. Our first child was born in 2014, and we've had another one along the way as well. So it's
full on.
It's been a difficult time in terms of sort of juggling it all. But again, I think it probably comes back to the fact of having a passion, enjoying what you're doing.
Yeah,
you'll kind of make it work. It's like tomorrow, Lisa's doing a presentation at a school that we do a financial planning class for schools.
Oh, that's amazing.
Lisa goes into schools and kind of does like a lesson on how much a house costs and how much you need to earn to do it, and educating youngsters in terms of what impact, not paying your mobile phone can have on your credit rating later on in life. But she's got to be at school at 9 o'clock. So I've had to adjust my diary to make sure that I'm available to take our kids to school and vice versa. So we just make it work, I think, is the best way to explain it.
Yeah, fair enough. I think that's amazing what Lisa's doing in terms of that kind of education. I think it's left out at school, really. I remember leaving school and thinking and not having a clue about finances or budgeting or, it's all about the AB.
No, I mean, it's always been a passion of hers, is something, that kind of educating, and that's very much her bag, standing up in front of a class of kids and she likes that kind of thing. Not for me, that one. I let her take that one. I mean, they did it at one at the local school to us, and they've already been approached by. She takes a couple of members of staff with her, maybe an advisor or one of the administrators. They've already been approached by quite a few other local schools in terms of whether they can run something similar for them.
Oh, that's cool. It's successful then, and kids are responding well to it.
Absolutely. So she loves that kind of thing. So I think she's there every Tuesday morning for the next few weeks, I think, doing it to various different age groups. So, but again, it's part of the kind of company ethos of giving something back in terms of education. Like I say, it's a massive thing. It's all very well learning what types of different rock formation there is, but what purpose does that serve later on in life? You're better off knowing what you need to do to get a mortgage and the impact on decisions you make when you're 17, 18 and you don't bother to pay your credit card or that kind of thing, the impact that can have later on in life when you actually come around to wanting a mortgage.
Yeah, you're so right. You're so right. And I think it's something that I growing up never knew about. And it would definitely benefit more people to know about that.
Absolutely.
Especially the younger generation. Just to talk about the industry a bit, what would you say is like your bugbears of the industry?
Quite a few, to be perfectly honest. I mean, obviously, COVID's been a very difficult time for the lenders and for the banks. Some of them really stepped up during that period. Others absolutely went to pot, to be perfectly honest. Now, I get it. We all had our struggles, but we had to kind of adapt and carry on. And some of the lenders really struggled with that and are still struggling now in terms of us being able, the stamp duty holidays obviously magnified the issues that they had as well. It's been great for the industry, generating more interest in business, but it's also pretty much broken some lenders and almost ground them to a halt. So, that's been a bit of an annoyance. Inconsistent underwriting, particularly since COVID, that's been you'll have one scenario with a lender and an underwriter will be fine with it. The exact same scenario the next day, the different underwriter's not okay with it. And it's like, well, changing, moving the goalposts almost in that sense.
Yes.
I mean, another big bugbear of mine is unethical practices, maybe you could describe, by some estate agents and that kind of thing, in terms of the pressure that they put people under to use their in-house mortgage broker for no advantage other than their own. I've
been reading a lot about this recently, and it's a big bugbear for people in the industry. Because people that aren't in it don't realise that there is a choice you can make there.
And ultimately, these people who are making offers, they just want that house. So if they've got a mortgage in principle with Mortgage First, you know, we've spent time with them getting them the best mortgage lined up so they can go out and view a property. But then that agent says to them, well, you've got to use our broker. And if you don't use our broker, then, you know, you're potentially going to struggle to get this property. It'd be much better for you to use our broker. And we've got special rates, etc., etc. Of course, that person who doesn't understand the industry is going to go, oh, God, well, I'll use your broker then.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, there's some great agents out there. We work with many estate agents, but more and more nowadays, am I hearing not just from our brokers, from brokers as a whole, sort of horror stories about losing out on clients because the agents are pushing them to use their own. And you do kind of wonder what the vendors, the people buying the house, would say if they knew that the pressure that the agent was putting people who want to make an offer on the house under to you for their own personal gain to buy that, you know, to use their own in-house mortgage brokers. There's no advantage to the vendor in that. It's purely just for the agent's own gain. So you do wonder what some of those vendors would say if they actually knew what went on behind the scenes. But
yeah, there's not really that level of transparency there.
No, absolutely not. But, you know, like I say, that certainly doesn't apply to all agents. There's some great agents out there as well. But yeah, you know, long delays of applications we're still having those issues. Some lenders' systems could do with a bit of improvement. They've been the same for many, many, many years and probably not moved with the times in terms of tech.
Yeah.
But, you know, I think, like I say, quite a long list of bugbears. But don't get me wrong, it is a great industry to be part of as well. You know, I couldn't imagine myself working in any other industry. We've been very lucky as an industry as well these last couple of years that we've managed to kind of keep going to a certain degree. Yeah. So the bugbears are minor as opposed to some of the bigger issues that other people in other industries have had over the last couple of years.
Yeah, I appreciate that and agree. I mean, to shed some positive light, I know you said some lenders really stepped up, and some people, you know, during the pandemic, they took it upon themselves to really show face. What did that look like?
Yeah, you know, there was certain lenders. The biggest issue during the pandemic was in terms of the high loan to value stuff. So because lenders couldn't go out and do valuations all of a sudden, they were relying on auto valuations in a lot of cases. But a lot of lenders didn't have the confidence or the capabilities to work off the high loan to value stuff. So, you know, unless you had a big deposit, you were struggling to get a mortgage because they simply couldn't send a valuer out there. There were some lenders who managed to keep auto valuations at 90% LTV. So, you know, that really helped out in the sense of keeping that, you know, still having that option, because there were kind of times where you would look at it and you would say, well, unless you've got you know, 20-25% deposit, there's no point even looking at a mortgage.
Right.
And so there were certainly lenders who helped out in that sense. And also just in terms of process and being there to help the brokers out. Because ultimately, from your BDM, that's kind of all you want, you know. We don't need business development managers from lenders to tell us what rates they've got. We've all got sourcing systems, Trigold and Mortgage Brain, that tell us all of that. That's not what you need a BDM for. You need a BDM to kind of help you with the criteria side of things and give you a real world answer to whether a case is going to fit or not. So yeah, there was some who really stepped up and really kind of helped out. The vast majority now are kind of back to some semblance of decent service. There's still a few that are struggling. And to be perfectly honest, I generally, from our advisors, only hear about the bad ones because they're moaning about how rubbish they are. Whereas the good ones, I had a call with a lender the other day, and I said, to be honest, the best praise I can give you is that I haven't heard anything about you for the past 12 months. So the fact I haven't heard anything about you means that obviously it's going well, because the brokers only tend to hear about them when a lender's doing terribly.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, very interesting that you should say that. And touching on like the role as a BDM as well, how important is that role in your infrastructure? In
terms of the lender business development managers?
Yeah. For your own, in your own personal business with Mortgage First.
So we have, we've recently had a bit of a restructure in terms of management, where we have promoted Carly from within the team to sort of head of service. And brought in a new manager also called John Warman as head of advisor development. You could kind of view both of those as a bit of a BDM role, but I would put them as a little bit more senior than the standard BDM role. Just purely because, again, as the company's grown, we got to the point where me and Lisa can only do so much on a day-to-day. We realised that the advisors needed a bit more support, a bit more help. And some of our advisors, they're writing decent levels of business. They don't need that much help or support. They probably just need somebody a couple of times a year to have a bit of a catch up with, go through kind of business plans and business figures and that kind of thing. But we have other people, particularly new advisors, who do need a certain element of support and do need, a plan put in place for the first 3 or so months of development and hand holding to a certain degree. Particularly when we're actively recruiting, you can't just sort of bring people in, give them a 20-minute Zoom induction and away you go type thing. You need a training plan in place. So in terms of the development of the business, yes, it's a massive part of our plan to be able to help and support them. Because being self-employed, particularly if you're remote-based working from home, can be a bit of a lonely world, to be honest. So that they kind of need that help and support in place to help them develop as an advisor and write more business, because ultimately that's what we're here for at the end of the day.
Yeah. And with that, have you seen that that support being implemented and then it really benefiting the advisor? Have you seen people go from strength to strength in your business?
Yeah, absolutely. It's relatively new in the sense of, and John's probably been in his role for a couple of months now. Already we've seen a couple of advisors, their business levels. I've just done September's figures actually, and there's a couple of advisors whose business levels have significantly increased. And I know that John sat down and spent time with them, working with them, and that's the kind of help and support that some people need. Like I say, some people, they're very self-sufficient. They're writing decent levels. They'll always continue to write decent levels. But there are other people, and we realised as a business, that was a hole that we had. Historically, that would be me. That would, I used to be an advisor. I deauthorised 3 years or so ago. Historically, that would be me that would kind of sit and be that person and help them where I could. But because the business has grown, the nicest possible way, I don't have time to do that anymore.
Yeah.
We realised that if we wanted to continue growing and take it to the next level,
still nurturing your advisors.
Yeah, we needed somebody to kind of come in and be that coach, that mentor, and that kind of thing. So yeah, already we're seeing the benefits of it, and long may that continue, hopefully.
Yeah, long may it continue. In terms of advisors that you look for, the right attitude and the people that you would want joining your team, what does that look like?
So I would say that we're quite, we're certainly not unique, but we're not a firm that every advisor would be the right advisor for us, because our advisors work from home, because they work remotely in terms of the advice that they give, because they the leads that we generate are internet generated leads all over the country. Certain advisors just potentially won't fit that model. If you've got somebody who has spent 10 years in an estate agents, dealing with referrals from the estate agent, dealing with everything face to face, they may not necessarily suit our model in terms of remote internet generated inquiries. So in terms of organisation is always a really big skill that I say, because we generate leads in large volumes. You've got to be really, really organised in terms of spinning those plates and making sure that you're dealing with them all in an efficient manner, because with the internet generated leads, probably naive to think that somebody's going to put the details in the Mortgage First website and then wait for somebody to come back. They're going to put the details in 4 or 5 different websites.
Absolutely.
Try to get from everybody. So you've got to make sure that you're the one that's getting to them quickly, that you're dealing with them. Then also you're following up. There's no point
that level of consistent care.
Yeah, and then leaving them for 4 weeks and hoping that they come back to you, because that advisor from that other firm down the road that's ringing them every couple of days to see how they're getting on, they're probably going to be the ones that win the business. Organisation driven is a big one. Again, you want people who are wanting to put the legwork in and want to put the time and the effort into to develop and to grow and to hit those big business levels. I mean, a big thing that we always look out for as well is just a nice people, really.
Yeah.
You know, we've rejected. We are quite selective in terms of who we take, and not everyone will fit the model from a business or an experience point of view. But you know, also in the nicest possible way, not everybody will fit it from a personality point of view either. You know, we've rejected people because they undoubtedly would have wrote high levels of business, but you know, after speaking to them, you could see that potentially be a bit of a nightmare to work with in terms of their personality, their attitude. So it's about ticking all the boxes. I would rather have, you know, 2 people writing 100 grand a year who are really, really committed, you know, really, you know, just generally nice people, maintaining standards that we've got. I'd rather have 2 of those than 1 person writing 200 grand a year who's an absolute nightmare.
You wouldn't have them around for a barbecue. You want people that
no, exactly. I won't be playing beer pong with them in the garden. So, so yeah, you know, it's about finding that nice balance of people who are going to write the business levels that we want, that are going to maintain the mortgage first standard. You know, because I talked about it being the 3rd baby. I've worked so hard, or we've worked so hard.
All right. So, John, what advice would you give to someone thinking about going self-employed and starting up their own mortgage business?
What advice would I give somebody setting up by themselves? Well, don't, first of all. You may as well come and join Mortgage First instead. But no, I mean, in all seriousness, I'd say, you know, it is very tough. So take your time. You need to learn to walk before you can run. As I said earlier, you know, it was 5 or 6 years until I took my first advisor on. And I only did that because, well, first of all, I took an administrator on. So I was that busy doing it myself that I needed to take an administrator on to free up my time. And then I only took an advisor on when, even with an administrator and me working at full capacity, I still had too many leads and too much business that I couldn't cope with it all.
Yeah.
I see some people, you know, that I speak to, and their kind of focus is, I want to take advisors, I want to grow a business and build a business. There's no point taking advisors just for the sake of it, because it won't work out. You've kind of got to get the foundations in place before you actually look at growth. So just be a good mortgage advisor yourself and get to the point where you've got to take administration staff on, or you've got to take other advisors on because you've got too much business yourself.
Yeah.
And also, you know, be prepared for the waves. I'd say the business kind of, you know, growing a business, it will go in waves. I've kind of had to, and I'm as guilty as anybody with it, but I've had to sort of be strict to myself in terms of you can't get too carried away when things are going really, really well. Likewise, you can't get too down when it doesn't go as you had it planned out. You know, I saw a great graphic a while ago, which was sort of the growing a business. And if you're at A and you want to get to B, it's never a straight line like that. It's always all over the place. There's peaks and troughs. You have good spells, you have bad spells. But as long as eventually you get to there, you're still heading in the right direction.
Very much so.
Never be as smooth as you want it to be. You're going to have ups and you're going to have downs.
Yeah.
So it's not to get too carried away when it's going great and think you've cracked it. And likewise, not to get too down when things aren't going as you had planned.
That's it. Very similar to life. I mean, something that I stand by is slow progression, still progression. And
absolutely. You know, if you you know, like you say, you're not going backwards. You are growing. It's never going to be, you know, love it if it was that smooth, straight growth line, but it just isn't how it works. Mm-hmm. But like you say, you know, 1 step backwards, 2 steps forwards is still growth. You're still going in the right direction.
Yep, 100%. I think that kind of rounds thing up. I want to thank you for coming on. And final question, which I'm going to be asking everyone, is what is your tune of the week? Is there a song that you've been listening to?
Tune of the week. Well, I mean, one of my favorite hobbies is being a bit of a bedroom DJ. Cool. So I've got my decks up in the loft at home. I like nothing more than on a Saturday evening going up with a little cool bag of beers and doing a couple of hours on my decks playing solely just to myself up there.
That is quality.
So my choice of music's probably a little bit out there for maybe. So I probably, well, as soon as we've just got tickets for to go and watch Ed Sheeran next year. I
Nice.
know my little lad's favourite song currently that he has on all the time is Bad Habits by Ed Sheeran. So probably go with that one.
All right, very nice. Thank you very much. And that the reason I asked, because music's a big part of my life. I'm in a band, and I think it's something that everyone can share in. You know.
I mean, music for me is we've got young kids. Don't go out anywhere near as often as I used to. Me and Lisa both work in the business. It can be hard to switch off sometimes. You know, you get home from work and you'll then just carry on talking about Mortgage First.
Oh, totally.
I know. So,
yeah.
But yeah, so music is kind of my release and my go upstairs, like I say, couple of hours on the decks, have a couple of beers, and that's how I relax, really.
Amazing. That is insightful. I like that a lot. Well, I think we're gonna end it there. So thank you so much for coming on, and all the best.
No problem at all. Cheers, Ali. Thanks for having me, mate.